All right. All right, peoples, my food is done. I am ready to read today's chapter of My Hero Academia. Things look very tense in the last chapter, and then it ended with the proclamation of I am here, and All Might standing in the way of a rejuvenated, rewinding All for One, whose mental state and negative emotions have been unabated, and he flies straight to the very individual who put him in the current state that he's in. So, to get the formalities out of the way. Yo, peoples! QShoot92 here, and welcome back to yet another live reading of My Hero Academia. Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye on my system and everything to ensure that we don't have another mishap like we had with One Piece. Let's just go back and do a recap of what happened in the last chapter. In the last chapter, we find out a couple of things. One is finding out that Dabi is condensing all the thermal energy in his body so he can go off like a nuke and basically destroy and burn everything off the map within 5 kilometers. And both Yue and Shiketsu are in both Yue and Shiketsu, Yue in the east, Shiketsu in the west. The route between them passes near Gunga in the Kinki region. So he essentially intends to take out both Yue and Shiketsu with that massive blast. Within that blast zone, we still have an evac box that stopped moving. And in that blast zone, well, actually, the blast isn't going to be that big, but the reason why it's so pressing is because there's an evac box that has stopped moving. So, and that also holds the Todoroki family. And All for One is making his way towards where Shigaraki is, all while All Might is giving a helpful pep talk to both Ida and Shoto, because they're both the ones who can get to Shoto in time. And he gives like a rousing speech and encourages them both. And they both go shooting off into the distance with extreme force. And as that goes on, we see All for One fly up closer and closer, and All Might is standing in front of him. And one thing to take from this chapter is that All Might stands there saying that, yeah, with the way you are right now, there's absolutely no way you could resist facing me. And why? Because I am here. Because he says, no, stop you quirkless. Because All Might says, you must remember the endless warring that got us here. And now that I hear that Tomura Shigaraki's hatred is even affecting your original body. So I'm thinking you won't be able to ignore me. Isn't that right? I am here. And then it ends with a chapter with All for One looking absolutely crazed in the eyes. So now, hopefully we get to see what happens in this encounter. We do not, because we go right into chapter 387. What is it? Congealing? It looks like it says congealing, because it's not concealing, because it says chapter 387, congealing. And then we get Getten. Quirk Iceply, Paranormal Liberation Front Lieutenant. Getten says, Himura blood runs thick. Long ago, the Himura started as village leaders, and even after agricultural revolution, they maintained their wealth and pride by creating branch families. But the advent of the exceptional only hastened their downfall. They didn't want to dilute their blood, you see. Then we get the person who's known as Mr. Compress, as he's inside of Hold Up as well. A snobbish bloodline, prejudiced against heteromorphs. Can you imagine what Spinner would say if he heard about such a combo? This resulted in countless marriages between branch families, between distant relatives, essentially. Hence your remark about thick blood. By insulating themselves like that, the Himura clan was doomed to shrink and wane. When the head family started selling off children into marriage, it essentially marked the end of their line. The few remaining families and their members scattered, including myself, which is when Redestro came upon me and brought me into the fold. With each generation, meta abilities grow more complex, deeper and richer, like layered sediment in a body, with some powers lying dormant unbeknownst to the user. Yet people's hearts never manage to evolve. I wonder what changes we'll witness come tomorrow. And Compressed doesn't say anything. Okay, your turn. Hear anything good from the cops or heroes? Hold on. All right. I have my reservations. Getting is a dude. Good. All right. I just like it messed me up when I read through his first appearance initially. Okay, your turn. Hear anything good from the cops or heroes? Whatever you've got, entertain me. We're just killing time until the battles end. Then it cuts to where Toya is as it cuts to the Gunga Mountains. About 800 meters from the Gunga Mountain Villa ruins, the whole place is just up in fire. It's like a massive fireball is just in the middle of this forest, and it's just there. And it's burning hotter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And Endeavor is right there. And his body's starting to burn up, and he gets told what's going on.
An explosion, you say?
And he's huffing and puffing because he's still tired after everything that's happened, including losing his arm.
It's not just the evacuation block that's in danger, but also Pixie Bob's group, which is fighting back against Toga's doubles.
And it shows Toya, who's just covered in body-searing heat, and he's just right there in front of Endeavor.
Darn it. Fighting all for one did a number on my legs. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep luring Toya away.
And then it cuts to Toya, who's gone. The person known as Toya Dabi is gone. All you just see is an individual who is just bent on the destruction of Endeavor. As it cuts to Toya screaming out,
Dad! Watch me!
And then it cuts to Endeavor as he's just standing there looking at his son.
Watch me!
As Toya's entire body is just covered in flames. You couldn't even tell if he was human anymore. His body, whatever skin he had, whatever muscle he's had, it's gone. He is literally just he's almost a walking skeleton at this point. The only thing that hasn't been fried is his brain. And even that's debatable. But he's just there, and he pulls up a fist, and his arm explodes. It looks like his arm just breaks off. Like he tries to gather as much power as he can in his arm, and all you just see is his arm just implode from the inside because Toya creates, just like he did in his younger days. Look what I figured out how to do. And it shows Toya when he was smaller, he was able to coat his arm in fire and create like a giant fist. He's doing that now, but no longer trying to make it so that it's outside of his arm. His whole arm basically just blows up just so he can create this giant fist that he can punch in the direction of Endeavor. And Endeavor gets scorched by this as well, and he gets sent flying. And here's the thing, remember, this is all of Dabi's blue flames. Blue flames are hotter than even Endeavor and Shoto's flames as well. So all of this that we're seeing, just big old searing hot blue flames that's just up there. And it burns Endeavor and he gets launched away. And Toya zooms into where he is and grabs onto him, with Endeavor screaming,
"Come on, Toya! Put out those flames! Watch me! I don't want to watch you die! Not so. Let's play!"
And then Endeavor sees that
his mind's gone. His mind's long gone. This fire is hot enough to burn even me. So how's it possible that he can still hold himself together? Toya, what is it about you?
And it shows the cross-section where he copied Shoto's phosphorus, and Endeavor tries to reach out towards Toya. And it really does show that it just confirms what I said. Toya, trying to create that giant giant fist made of fire, he blew up his own arm in order to do that. His mind is so far gone that his own sense of self-preservation is also gone. He's just burning endlessly until he dies and everyone along with him. So he no longer cares. He just zooms over to Endeavor, grabs onto it, and Endeavor tries to touch the spot where his phosphorus cross is. And you see the burnt end of his arm, but the energy inside of him is coursing so much that the wound isn't cauterized. It's glowing from the amount of power that is in Toya building up right now. And then then Endeavor looks on and thinks,
that visceral sense of danger when facing death. Sometimes a near-death experience can trigger a quirk to awaken.
And then he looks on.
On the other hand, people can also summon absurd power in a crisis when it's do or die. That's different than a quirk awakening. That power only manifests as the Reaper draws near.
And then Endeavor's eyes open up wide as he sees that... Wow. Shoto is not the only one with 2 quirks. Because as he's putting his hand on Toya, the center of his chest starts to turn to ice.
Rei's quirk.
And then he thinks back over everything that's happened to him. Everything that he tried to get to happen. Everything he tried to get to happen. And over the course of him marrying Rei, trying to create a child that had 2 quirks, just so that kid could be used to surpass All Might one day. And it's always been in Toya. All this time, it's good to see you, Allie. All this time, Toya has had the capability of using 2 quirks. But here, as his body just rages out of control, Rei's ice quirk, the mother of Shoto and Toya and all the rest of the Todoroki kids, her quirk now manifests. It's been in Toya all along. And it's just now manifesting as Toya is preparing to burn himself out and kill everyone in 5 kilometers.
I'll win today and keep my eyes on Toya.
Then it cuts to Endeavor as he's right there in front of his son, but his son is, like back to when he was Dabi, but he's right there in front of his father, and he's just thinking like his body isn't singed, just like in the Mindscape right now. And then we see cracks going over Toya's body as Endeavor goes,
I take full responsibility. I swore to bear that burden and live my life atoning for it all. However, you've been watching me all this time. While I couldn't be there to watch you, you were someone I especially needed to do right by. You were someone I especially needed to do right by. It's always the same dream. My whole family's there, but not me. No, I can't let you meet your end alone, but I won't let anyone else get caught up in our tragedy.
As Endeavor holds on to Toya, he grabs a hold of Toya and doesn't let go, and using every... I know what he's about to do. I know what he's about to do. Okay. I know what he's about to do, but my brain doesn't want to process what he's about to do, because if this happens... Let me continue.
I can't cover enough ground quickly enough, so instead we'll ride your fire straight into the sky, Toya.
And it shows Toya's body cracking more and more because the power that's building up within him, it's preparing to go off. Because Endeavor, using every ounce of his strength, puts every bit of power into his quirk near his feet, and he starts to shoot off into the air.
Just a bit longer. No, don't blow yet!
And then we get Himura blood runs thick as Endeavor is flying up into the air. As Endeavor is flying into the air holding on to Toya, because my assumption is that he's preparing to fly as high into the air as possible so that if Toya goes off, at least the explosion won't happen on the ground near everyone, it'll happen in the air. But as Endeavor is flying in the air, we see Rey. And she is right there with Endeavor. So not only is Endeavor flying in the air trying to take care of Toya, but Rey, the mother, she's in the air as well. And this completely shocks both Endeavor and myself.
Rey?
And Rey is just right there, because it cuts to a flashback when Toya says,
"You're guilty too, Mom."
So she sees herself as just as responsible as Endeavor, and she's there with them. It is anyone's guess how this is going to go out. Because here's the thing, Rey has the power of ice. All of Endeavor's face is burned off, or is that just you? No. It's just that it's starting to burn off. His face is starting to get massively burned because of all the heat that is coming off of Toya's body. Remember, blue flames are incredibly destructive. On the average person, you will get reduced to ash within moments. But on someone as strong as Endeavor, sure, he's got his own firepower and that can keep the heat off of him. But Toya's powers have progressed to a point where even Endeavor can't have his flames protect him enough. So his face is starting to get burned, and it even shows that Rey is getting close to these flames as well, because it shows part of her face is starting to, starting to burn a little bit as well. It shows that her body and her skin is starting to burn as well. Hold on, let me see this. All right, awesome. Thank God they got a summary right now. The combusting Dabi manically screams out for his dad to watch me, causing Endeavor to see the young Toya in his eyes as he's unleashing a devastating vanishing fist that completely envelops Endeavor. Dabi grabs a hold of him as Endeavor desperately tries to convince his son to put out his flames, and he doesn't want to watch him die. But Dabi continues to repeat the same things over and over with his mind long gone. Endeavor recognizes the fire is hot enough to burn him, wondering how it is possible he can still hold himself together after all of that. He reaches into Dabi's heart and thinks about how, when someone has a near-death experience, it may cause their quirk to awaken, while on the other hand, some people can summon an absurd power in a crisis. But unlike a quirk awakening, this power only manifests when they are truly at death's door. Within Dabi's phosphor, Endeavor recognizes Rey's quirk, realizing Dabi has manifested ice within his quirk. As his life flashes before his eyes, Endeavor looks at Dabi and says he takes full responsibility, believing he had to bear the burden and stay alive to atone for what he's done. But now he recognizes that Dabi's been watching him all this time, while he couldn't be there to watch him. He declares he can't let him die alone, but also won't let anyone else get caught up in their tragedy. Grabbing a hold of him and preparing to use his firepower to propel the both of them into the sky to explode together. However, before he can get too far, as Dabi's body continues to crack, Rey appears before the two of them using her ice to stop them. And we also get a little bit of history, is that Getten, the ice quirk user, that was with the Para-Liberation Army, is from the same family as Rey. Because in the notes it says, it is revealed Getten is from the Himura family. They were a proud and wealthy family that established branch families all in an effort to keep their bloodline pure. However, the rise of meta abilities eventually caused the family to fall apart. So not only was the marriage between Rey and Endeavor a very logical way of getting people married together. I think for Endeavor, getting married to an ice quirk user and then trying to produce a child that can then have two powers at once, that was his idea. But since the Himura family still tried to, keep their bloodline pure, were marry, even having to, marry in the family with distant cousins to keep the bloodline pure. They were the Malfoys of My Hero, pretty much. It didn't really work out for them. They did not last long, and thus they started, selling off their children to different places in order to keep their bloodline going. Geddon was part of a branch family that was scattered after the main family started selling people off for marriage. And I believe that Ray was one of these people as well that got sold off for marriage too. Endeavor learns about Dobby's impending explosion and starts to fall due to his injuries and Dobby's heat. He discovers that Dobby has manifested the ice from Ray's quirk within his own as a result of being on the verge of death. With nothing else to lose, Endeavor prepares to rocket himself and Dobby into the air to save everyone else, only to stop when Ray appears before them. And mind you, Ray is a pure ice-using quirk user. Like, if I go down to her quirk ability, if it'll allow me to go down to her quirk ability, she has the power of ice. She has like an ice quirk, which is where Shoto gets it from. I'll just scroll down. Yeah, Frost. Ray's quirk gives her the ability to generate and manipulate ice from her body. This ice quirk is presumably very powerful, given that it impressed Enji enough that he wanted an offspring with a combination of this quirk and his own. It can be assumed that this quirk holds the same weakness as Shoto's ice, and that her body will be covered in frostbites if it is overused. This quirk also gives her a liking for cooler weather. So that's her quirk. She has the frost quirk. Because overusing it can cause frostbite. Like, here's more details. Ray's possession of this quirk was manipulating and producing ice around a body. Frost resistant to ice and weakness to heat. Okay. So the second and third children, Fuyumi and Natsuo, inherited the Frost quirk, while the eldest, Toya, inherited a stronger version of Hellfire, but Frost resistance to ice and weakness to fire. So the youngest son, Shoto, eventually developed the combination quirk that Enji so desired, half cold, half hot, containing the strength of both quirks as well as the way to alleviate their respective weaknesses. So, Judging from this entire chapter, good to see you, Halster, Zephyr, good to see you, Beat 24/7 Dragon, hello, good to see you as well. This is just rubbing more salt in the wound for Endeavor since Dobby had this the whole time. Here's the thing, it's not a matter of he had it the whole time and he just chose not to use it. It's just that it was so dormant within him that it's really here on the brink of Toya's demise that the quirk decides to manifest. It's been dormant within him. But him being near death and in a death-like state is what's causing the quirk to actually manifest in his body. That's what's causing it to happen. So I wouldn't call it salt in the wound, because even I'm pretty sure Toya didn't even realize he had that quirk in his body. He just thought he had fire this whole time. But as this chapter says, either, like if I go back to it, hold on. That visceral sense of danger when facing death, sometimes a near-death experience can trigger a quirk to awaken. On the other hand, people can also summon absurd power in a crisis when it's do or die. That's different than a quirk awakening. That power only manifests as the Reaper draws near. So, because Toya is so near death, that's what's causing that secondary quirk to appear in him and to wake up within him. That's completely different from a normal quirk awakening. Where have I seen this scene before? I recognize it from another anime I've seen before. It kind of, yeah. You were saying about Pell during the Alabasta arc for One Piece, where he saw that he used his powers to go high up in the air and then have the bomb go off before it destroyed all the rebel army and the Alabasta Kingdom soldiers from getting caught up in the blast that Crocodile was going through. We'll go through that chapter once I get through that volume, but that's basically pretty much what it is. Because I got very scared thinking that Endeavor was going to fly high into the air and then just let himself blow up with Toya. But now Rey has just showed up, and she starts using her ice powers around them. I don't know if she's going to be able to cool off Toya's body and just completely make him cold. Even though Toya has inherited a stronger version of Endeavor's Hellfire quirk, but also the Frost quirk's resistances to ice and weakness to fire. We'll just have to see if she's able to freeze Toya and get him cold so that he doesn't go off. Because I would hate for not only Endeavor to go up with Toya, but also for Rey to go up as well. I would hate for the mom to go with the father as well, even though she sees herself as because I want to assume that she sees herself as responsible as Endeavor does. All of Endeavor's face is burned off. There was a theory that Dobby did have an ice quirk, but it just hadn't manifested yet. That's exactly what it is. So that theory is pretty much confirmed now. He's had the quirk within him, but he was never put in a situation where it was a life or death situation where it could actually come forth. So it just shows you that all the years of his life, he's never been in a situation where he was near death or put in that state, because his quirk is just that strong. So it's very few people could contend against it, say for All For One and someone like Shigaraki or Makia. So he's never been in a situation where his quirk could be given that time for it to manifest. But now here we are with Toya going full nuclear right now and also manifesting an ice quirk on his deathbed. And his body, his mind is gone. Completely gone. All he can do is, because he's regressed. Mentally, he's regressed. He's regressed back to the day when he was telling his father to watch him. That's where he is right now. That's mentally where he is right now. He doesn't see reason. He doesn't see anything. He just sees building up so much power and intends to go up in a big old blaze of glory to please his dad, and killing so many people in the process. And that's where we are right now. So not only is the father there trying to contend with the son, but the mother is there as well to try and contend with her child that she feels as much responsibility for because of everything that's transpired. This was a good chapter, finding out more about the Himura family and their connections and how the blood runs deep. So not only is Getten a member of that family, but Rey, we already knew, but it's it must have been a massive family of nothing but ice quirk users or ice-related quirk users, if they are talking about keeping the bloodline pure. That's just what it seems like to me. But this is not a chapter that we're going on break on. So that means we're going to see what happens. Hopefully, we'll see what happens in the next chapter. I enjoyed this. I got scared for a moment thinking that this would be the chapter where we lost Endeavor. I really did. Everything he's done just for him to continue the line of duty as a hero and maybe give his own life in order to stop his son and save so many people. I mentally thought that we were going to be going in that direction. So Dobby fought a distant cousin of his, or maybe he was a part of a different branch in the family. Getten was part of a branch member of the main family, of the Himura family. Because if we go back to the beginning here, when Getten is talking to Compress, he's saying long ago the Himura started as village leaders, and even after agricultural revolution, they maintained their wealth and pride by creating branch families. Getten comes from a branch family. But the advent of the exceptional only hastened their downfall. They didn't want to dilute their blood, you see, and they only believed in keeping their bloodline pure, which is why they had no problem creating countless marriages between branch families, between distant relatives, essentially. So when they said about keeping their family in the family, they really did. They really took that to the next day. That sweet home Alabama, but they really did take that to heart, because that's how serious they were about it. They were purebloods. That's what they believed in. That's what the Himura family in the beginning believed in. But by doing that, they pretty much stifled any advancement for the family to progress and thus live on. So it got to a point where the family started to get so diluted that they had no choice but to sell off their own family members of branch families in order to keep themselves wealthy, because their idea of pure bloods did not last that long. Because by keeping themselves insulated and only people of the main family get to continue on, the bloodline must continue with the Himura family, and it must be purely Himura blood that must go through there. They pretty much diluted their entire lineage by going through this method. And before they were completely written off, they started selling off branch members in order to keep the Himura family blood going. They had no other choice but to branch off to selling off their own members. So yeah, to think that there were families like this in My Hero that operated under the whole Malfoy tendency of pureblood wizards and witches from Harry Potter. It's like crazy that there are people who genuinely think this way and thinking that, like, if we keep it in the family, then we'll be able to live for our bloodline will be sustained and it'll be pure and it'll never be tainted by anyone outside of the family. But that's a surefire way of killing your entire bloodline. Okay, you see, he was just trying to figure if Ray and Getten were from the same branch or different branches. They're from different branches. They're definitely from different branches. It's like the makeup of the Hyuga clan, more or less. It's like the makeup of the Hyuga clan. Everyone in the Hyuga clan is, a Hyuga, pretty much. But you have the main branch, you have the main family, and then you have the branch families. It kind of works like that. Except the Himura clan was far more into keeping it within the family and never allowing anyone to marry outside of the Himura bloodline. So that's how they were. But it's interesting seeing that dynamic. But yeah, Dabi fought a distant cousin of his. Pretty much. Very distant cousin. We don't know how distant, but they're related because of the Himura blood that runs through them because of Rei. Rei comes from the Himura family. Because if I go over here, yeah, Rei Todoroki Nehimura. She was formerly a Himura, before she married Endeavor. So yeah, the Himura bloodline runs thick, and when it means that regardless, all of them are Himuras, like Natsuo, Fuyumi, Shoto, and Toya. They all have the Himura blood within them. And it's odd that they're drawn to each other when you think about it. Dabi running into a very distant Himura cousin, and now Rei is flying is right there with Endeavor and her son. It's weird how they're kind of drawn to each other when you think about it. But that's a minor thing. That's just like a really small thing. I'm just throwing that out there. But I did like this chapter, but I was really scared for Endeavor. Let me go ahead and close it out here because I'll just keep droning on about it because I do like seeing the dynamics and the way characters progress in this story. I tend to analyze how characters are in My Hero more than any other series that I read. So I like seeing these bits of exposition for My Hero because there's just so much you can glean from it. And then when you go back and see other things that have happened, you start to piece this together, a whole bunch of things like, wow, now it makes so much more sense why Rei ended up with Enji, not just because he wanted to create a child that could produce two quirks, but also because the Himura family needed her to be sold off in order for the family to continue on. So that just opens up a whole new can of worms as far as the lore is concerned. But I enjoyed this chapter, and I'm looking forward to the next one. We're not going on break for One Piece, My Hero, and Jujutsu comes back next week. And I can't wait to see what the next chapter of Jujutsu holds. Because for those of you who watch the anime, I'm not going to say. But for those of you who read the manga of Jujutsu, if you know, you know. But I'm done here. I'm going to call it a session. I'm going to rest up, drink the rest of my drink that I got sitting right here, and then work on some other things that I still have to do for my One Piece read-through for the next several months I'm going to be doing. So to everyone here, all I can say is thank you for your continued support of this channel. Whether you're liking, subscribing, or sharing what I do, or if you're working, or if you do it doing it from a more financial side through super chats, super thanks, and memberships, I just want to say I appreciate whatever support you give towards this channel. This is my only job, and this is my only job that pays, and I just want to say thank you for making it a sustainable one. I appreciate every single one of you. Exposition chapters are the best 90% of the time, because there are some exposition that can make things make less sense. Yeah, you got to be careful with exposition. Too much can kind of interrupt your immersion after seeing a whole bunch of action, but too little can then make you question, okay, whether there are plot holes and stuff. So you got to be careful with that. But I'm done. I'm done for the day. I'm going to rest up, and then I got to get right back to work behind the scenes. But to everyone here, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, subscribe, share this stream with everyone you know, because the more the merrier. And maybe even consider becoming a member, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples.